Making sauce. I'm going to run through the ingredients of how to make a real simple sauce using some fresh homemade stock, just adding that extra bit of flavour, depth of flavour to the ingredients. So our ingredient list, got our fresh stock simmering away on the back, and then in a pan on the front I'm going to add some roughly cut onions, roughly cut carrots. I haven't peeled these, I've just given them a good wash. Some leeks, some rosemary, some red wine, a little bit of tomato puree, some peppercorns, some star anise, and then some bay leaves. And then we'll just start the process off with a little bit of rapeseed oil. So to start with, just put a little bit of oil in the pan. You don't want loads of oil because obviously this is the final part of sauce making. You've been spending hours skimming away all the fat off, so you don't want to add too much fat at this point. You need a little bit just to get the colours going. So the first thing we're going to add is the onion, and then I'll add the carrot, and then I'll add the leek. It's really important that I start with the onion because you want to draw all the sugars out. If you add everything in all at once, what will happen is the leeks will start burning, and then the onions won't get cooked out, so you'll end up with this raw onion taste running through the sauce. So I'm now going to start adding things to my pot. So first of all we're going to add the oil. As you can see, the pan's nice and hot but not too hot. You don't want it absolutely firing because you don't want to burn everything. Just make sure the oil is all around the pan. So I'm just going to add the onions in first. You can see I've left the onions quite chunky. I've left the root on so they hold their shape still. If you cut them down too small, they're just going to burn really quickly. So just give that a little bit of a stir around. Just let that take a bit of colour on, and then we'll add the carrots. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for from the onion before I start adding the rest. You can see I've started taking on a nice dark bit of colour, and that's showing me that the sugars are coming out of the onion, which is really important for a sauce. So we're just going to pop that back in. Now we're going to add the carrots. If the pan does go dry slightly, always add a little bit more oil. It's a lot harder to take the oil out. So just a little bit more. Give it another 4 to 5 minutes for the carrots to start taking on some colour now. So just before I add the leeks, we've got the carrots that have got a really nice colour on them now. What's really important at this stage is try not to move the pan around too much because you're going to take the heat out of the bottom of the pan. Just let the pan do the work. You do need to gently stir the vegetables around and do that, but don't start shaking the pan around and doing all that because you just lose the heat. It's really important you just keep a constant heat now going on the bottom of the pan. So the carrots are now taking on a nice colour. So just roughly cut leeks, I'm going to pop them in. And then give them about 4 or 5 minutes, and then once they're coloured we'll then start adding some of the liquid. So just before we start adding our next stage, just wanted to show you obviously the leeks, onions and carrots are really nicely coloured. What's really important when you're making anything, but especially when you're making sauce, is to use your senses. I can start to smell the caramelisation on this veg, so you need to get used to that smell. That once you get a really nice colour, you'll get this really nice caramelised smell, and then you need to start doing your next stage. If you let it go past that, then it's going to start burning, and then you'll end up with a bitter sauce. That's a really important ingredient of being a chef, is using all your senses, of knowing how hot your pan is, using your smell to know what's going on in your pan as well. So we're going to pop those back in, and then we'll go to the next stage. So the next stage, now I've got beautiful coloured vegetables in here. I'm going to add a little bit of tomato puree to the pan. What's really important about the tomato puree is you've got to cook it out. So you want to get the pan to a really dark colour with that tomato puree. If you don't do anything with it now, and pour everything else, you're just going to end up with a really red, it'll look like a tomato sauce. You really need to cook out your tomato puree. I'm going to take some of the veg out now, let's add the tomato puree on it just so you can see the colour. You can see it's really stirred up now, and I've taken the edge off the tomato puree, so you can't see any bright red pieces of tomato puree. It's now starting to go a really nice dark brown colour, which is really important. You must take it to that stage. Okay, for the next stage, you've got your red wine. So that's now going to go in after the tomato puree. So I'm going to reduce this down by about half. Going to add in our rosemary now as well. Just going to break the leaves down a little bit just so it releases. I'm going to put a couple of bay leaves in, and I've got some peppercorns and 1 star anise. I'm going to let it reduce down. Once it's reduced down, I'm going to add the stock to it and then let it all cook down together. So the red wine's nice and reduced now. I'm just going to show you what we're looking for. You want the bubbles to be really nice and tight, and then pretty much reduced down to not a lot, but I'm going to show you now. Okay, so now I'm at this point, all I've got to do now is add the stock into the sauce base. Give that at least half an hour, 45 minutes. Have a taste, check the consistency. When you're happy, we'll pour it off, and then we'll pass all the vegetables out, and then the sauce base will be ready. Okay, so my sauce is now ready. Now we're going to start passing all the vegetables off. So I always start with a big chinois first, and then I'll move down to a finer chinois, but I'll get all the big stuff out first. If you try and push all the big stuff through the fine chinois straight, you'll damage the chinois very quickly, and all you'll end up doing is just clogging it up really quickly as well. So I'm just going to take the larger pieces out. So I've now got my first stage of sauce, so I'm now just going to pass it through the fine chinois. And then our sauce is ready to go. That's our beautiful sauce ready to go. So now all I'm going to do with that is chill it down, put it in the blanch chiller, and then put it in the fridge, and then it's ready for service.